This week on the show, we're honored to have former in-house audio director and composer for Kojima Productions, Ludvig Forssell.
Hello.
Hey, thank you for joining us, by the way.
No problem. Thanks for abiding by my weird schedule this week. Sorry for switching it around.
Not a problem.
Wouldn't be the first time, man.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers, buddy.
What you drinking?
Just a morning iced coffee. Nothing special.
Yeah, we're on the complete opposite side of
yeah, it's a little later here, so I'm drinking something a teeny bit different.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Fingers.
Hey everyone, this is Days Ahead.
And I'm Nitroid. You're listening to the Kojima Frequency.
Wish I could join you guys, but it's U.S. East time zone is probably the worst one when it comes to like setting things up with Japan. It's just like, what is it? 12 plus hours, 14 hours? I don't know.
I think it's 13, yeah. Yeah, we make it work, though.
Yeah, I've done a few recordings in New York and while like working with people back in Japan, and it was just the worst. You never get to sleep because once you try to go to sleep, their day starts.
Like, hey, man, what do you...
Is that a pretty regular thing, just having to go back and forth like that?
Well, it has been for at least the last... for Death Stranding, I mean, for the last big project, like working a lot in LA and a few times out in London and all over the place doing VO recordings and whatnot. But hopefully not as much of that going forward, at least in terms of having to be in touch with Japan while you're also over there. You know, it can be a bit much.
Yeah, especially when it's like demanding you to be creative too, and you're just like, I was just about to go to bed, but okay, guess I can crank something out real quick.
Yeah. Thankfully, I've not had to actually write music during my business trips, so that's a relief. So how do you guys usually do this?
Generally, we do like current events sort of, and this current event is actually E3.
Right.
On top of that, I did notice you guys were talking about that little game called Death Stranding. I heard that they kind of had a trailer for a director's cut. I don't know if anybody heard about that or talked about that. What's your take?
My take? I think I've heard about it. That's my take.
That's a hot take.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, if you just want to jump right into it, obviously I wrote the music for that.
That was my first question.
Yeah. Quite a while ago, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't really go into the details of what is included in the director's cut. I specifically asked when the trailer came out because I didn't know when it was going to come out, so it was a surprise to me too. I asked around to see if I had some leeway to kind of say I did this or that for the director's cut. But at this point, they don't really want to share much information until they're ready to share everything, I guess.
Yeah.
But at least I can say I did write the music for that, and that was like, I guess like October last year or something. So it's way back. I think we at the time were actually planning to release the trailer a bit earlier, but I think some stuff is honestly still like being figured out in terms of how it's going to be marketed. So in the end, I guess E3 was the correct timing for it. So yeah, feels good to finally have it out. I mean, having done it so in the past, like more than 6 months ago.
Yeah, it was cool that, figure with like, with Jeff and stuff, having it at Summer Game Fest, it was like this nice little bonus thing where it was like, all right, cool, here we go.
Well, I mean, that's the thing too for me, because it's Summer Game Fest. I guess that started at like 4 a.m. So I had no idea. I woke up and saw the news.
Oh, man.
Oh, no.
That's been most of E3.
Going back to that whole time zone bit.
Yeah, no, that's been most of E3 for me. Well, most years, honestly, except the few times I get to actually go over there and hang out.
At least you can just like wake up and just scroll through and be like, oh, okay, that's what came out. Everybody, like every news site has everything covered for you. So
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
all right,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. I don't waste my time sitting through like
Yeah.
an hour Capcom like presentation with no news in it.
Yeah, speaking of Capcom, that was a dud this year.
Oh, thank God. Okay.
Oh man.
That was the elephant in the room for me right now, because I was like, I don't want to be negative about E3 with the professional here, but at the same time, I'm mentioning Death Stranding first because I can't think about anything from E3 other than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right about the Capcom.
What, you guys don't like esports?
Well, I mean, that's still it's hearsay for me because I obviously didn't watch it. I just see people memeing about it, you know.
That's how we get our news now.
Yeah.
It's sort of like how people watch like the Super Bowl for commercials these days. People watch E3 for the memes.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty apt. I'm honestly surprised that E3 is back at all after all of the trouble they had sort of getting off the ground again, especially last year. Just it's just, I don't know, it's something surreal about it. And now it seems like the companies are sort of, you know, dipping their toe into the water a bit to see if it's worth investing the time and energy again. Like, that's what I got out of Capcom's.
Yeah. Obviously, I have no idea what it costs to do a presentation like that, but like, why do it if you don't really have much to say?
Yeah.
Especially if it's just going to be online, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it on your own schedule.
Yeah.
A lot of companies bowed out too. They were just like, "No, we're good. We'll just skip it this year." And everyone's like, "Oh."
Well, obviously, Sony or PlayStation's been kind of almost against E3 as a whole idea for the last few years. I think 2018 was the last time they were around.
Yeah,
So-
that was the year that I went. And that was, yeah. There's parts of it that were great, but there was parts of it that were just like, what are you doing? Why is there just this performance happening right now? Show us the games.
I mean, you got to admit, they really put a lot into the spectacle of it.
Yeah, that was the thing. It was just too much spectacle.
Like, I don't...
Yeah, well, the PlayStation, I don't know what you'd call it. It was like an interactive arena experience kind of thing that they had going in 2018 was pretty cool, I guess. I walked around, like, had a few beers with like other devs and talked about the games, but it was basically like 4 different venues or open areas where they'd set up like the city from Spider-Man, like New York City backdrops, and
Yeah,
like a Japanese garden for Ghost of Tsushima, and like a big dome where they showed all the trailers, and like Sam from Death Stranding standing all by himself in a corner.
yeah. They had that statue there. Yeah, I got a picture with that. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I feel like they that was their last hurrah of like, we're
Yeah.
gonna put everything into it and see how much we get back from it. And I don't know. It seems like they didn't think it was worth it in the end going forward. We'll see. I definitely enjoy that spectacle, but financially, is it viable? I'm not quite
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, if you get the same ROI with you know, a 20-minute YouTube stream, why bother?
No, that seems to be the general consensus of like what PlayStation is doing at the very least. Honestly, I mean, like, I'm surprised Nintendo is still doing it too.
Oh, that is tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah, they got the direct going.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm kind of wondering if part of Jeff's business model, Jeff Keeley, of course,
Yeah.
if part of his business model is, you know, being the facilitator of these announcements, providing the spectacle, like subsidizing the spectacle, if you will. Because between the Game Awards, which these days I call the Keeleys, and the Summer Game Fest, it seems like he has the monopoly on, like you guys said, that sort of like that spectacle, that event, that moment, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, he's kind of like the Ryan Seacrest of video games. He's just kind of like representing everything. He's doing a pretty good job at it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. It feels good to like have a face for for everything coming together. I don't know if it's super necessary or not, but he's a great guy, and um, I enjoy the stuff he makes. So like, why
Yeah.
not? I definitely don't think we're gonna need like the huge venue, LA Convention Center type of E3 thing going like in the future, because it just has been getting worse and worse the last
I
couple of
mean,
years.
especially after the past year. I mean, we're sort of reapproaching normalcy in a lot of ways, but
Right.
the entire paradigm has changed for how pretty much all business is conducted now. I mean, have you like? I guess I wanted to ask you. One of the things I wanted to ask you was how much of what's changed over the past year are you starting to see reverse now? Because I'm sure your work, your workflow
Yeah,
has had to adjust to everything. So do you see
right.
this being like a permanent thing, or are you sort of drifting back towards the old ways of doing business, I guess would be a way to put it?
Well, it's kind of weird for me because the last year has been a huge change in how I do things in for many different reasons, not just because of COVID. Um, like moving on to going freelance and working on your own means that you change a lot about the way you work, because I'm obviously not going through a company anymore, and that changes the whole approach. So honestly, the only thing that I can really point to is how hard it was to get things recorded at the beginning of COVID, and how easy it's kind of become right now. It's even like you get cases where like right now, for example, we have a state of emergency issued in Tokyo, which it really doesn't mean a lot, and it's kind of calmed down now, so it's nothing to really worry about that much. But basically, it means that a lot of players have their concerts canceled, so you have more players available. So it's actually easier to get things recorded with players right now.
Interesting.
As for in general, the big like moving towards normalcy, I'd say we're still not quite there here in Japan. The vaccines have started rolling out quicker, but it's still, they're not really talking about um, getting them to people under like 65. So we'll see what happens later towards the end of the year. But right now, it's kind of, we're still in that um, limbo status quo kind of situation we've been in for the last year or so.
Does that kind of like just restrict you too, with like them like giving you less visual assets or other things to kind of work off of too? Have you kind of seen the reflection on the other end of it?
Not really. I mean, it definitely means that if you're working with people abroad, you're not able to go and be in the same room and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But in terms of my work for the last few months, at the very least, I've been working on a Japanese project, so it's been pretty much business as usual when it comes to that. Outside of obviously like everybody getting tested before going and doing like a big hall recording, and restrictions to like not eating in the studio and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
You had mentioned a Japanese project or a project in Japan, and I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't help but notice that you were working on Belle, which has
Yep.
the same
Yep.
director as Summer Wars. I'm like a huge fan of Summer Wars. It's like one of my favorite films, so I'm very excited about this collaboration.
Yeah, like Summer Wars is actually my favorite Mamoru Hosoda movie as well. I
Yes.
love all his films, but that one just really I don't know, I connect to it in a way. I just love that whole like the feeling of it more so than like the intricate parts of the stories. I just love that sense of family, and like the landscape and everything, that like just the visual like feeling and warmth to the film. But yeah, that's basically what I've been working on mostly over the last few months, and we're kind of wrapping up production right now. It's supposed to come out here in Japan on the 16th, I think, of July. So getting close to the end on that one.
Yeah, I'm hoping they make that accessible here sooner rather than later. So I really do want to see that too.
Oh, they're definitely going to. I'm not sure when the Japanese version is going to come out. I know there's an English version planned as well. I definitely, as when it comes to all anime and everything, basically is like I don't prefer dubs at all. But like, there's going to be an English version too. I'm probably going to be in charge of like translating a lot of lyrics and stuff for that. So I'm going to be part of that too. But can't say for sure when that's coming out, nor can I say when the Japanese original is going to be out in the States or elsewhere. But it's going to be out. They're really pushing hard for like the amount of theaters that are going to pick it up. So, yeah, it'll be out soon.
And the thought of going to a theater again is kind of wild right now. It seems like a foreign concept at the moment entirely.
Yeah, no, yeah, I haven't been to a theater in the last not since 2019. No.
Yep, same. I did want to ask, sort of as a follow-up, I mean, doing games and films, is there like a different approach that you take between one medium versus another? And I guess, does that differ then as you make music for a game or a movie as opposed to making music for yourself?
Yeah, no, there's a lot of similarities, but there are way more differences, especially when you're working on like an anime movie like Belle right now. As the major thing for that one that was new to me and was a first time that I've never done before was working off of the storyboard only, basically, when I was writing like the majority of the music I did for it. So no actual like visuals except for like a simple storyboard. Whilst for games, the big difference I'd say in general, compared to other visual media would be that at least working in bigger games is you have like 4 years, meaning that you get a lot of time to try things out before you get super stressed towards the end. But it's in general there's more time to try things out, whereas in movies and other projects like that, you kind of have to start running at the very beginning of the project a lot of times.
Yeah, that does seem like a completely different process, just like having to follow those storyboards and kind of imagine the movement, and how long that's going to take, and
Yeah.
just like building your your crescendos and just like having the big impacts like land right there, and you're like, I guess it'll happen here.
Yeah, no, that was super weird. Honestly, it's something that I'd rather not do.
Yeah.
if I can avoid it, but definitely learned a lot from it.
Talk about working within limitations. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, like obviously there are other like technical aspects of working on games where like you also have to think about the interactivity of it and how you're actually building the music to work for several different situations. So there's definitely technical differences other than like just like how the projects are laid out.
Yeah, you're working more like within the sound engine, like with video games, where it's kind of
Right.
like it's got to be adaptive, and that's one thing I noticed a lot in Death Stranding. It was just like, God, I could turn the camera and like a filter would be applied, like if the camera went behind one of the force fields near like near one of like the outposts or something.
Oh yeah.
And that was just such a cool, like, immersive thing, and just the BTs and. You did an amazing job with, the sound design. It was crazy playing it with headphones.
Oh yeah. Definitely recommend playing it on headphones or good speakers, because we kind of mix the game towards a better setup than maybe most people have at home, and we didn't really have the leeway to add the extra listening modes that a lot of games have these days, which is kind of a regret on my end. because there are ways to kind of add an extra compressor in the audio engine and stuff to just make sure that it's like less dynamic.
Yeah.
So like really playing it on headphones or a good sound system without like outside sounds, messing with your input is definitely something I'd recommend, because I think we made something really special with like the audio mix and everything that we ended up getting into the game. So yeah, and it feels like a lot of people have appreciated the audio of Death Stranding too. So
Yeah, definitely. That was one of the things I admired about it the most. It was just, just running from the BTs like that first time I had headphones on. I was just like, oh, this is terrifying.
yeah.
With the whole idea of it being sort of adaptive or dynamic, though, I was curious, like how involved in the technical aspect of integrating that music into the game are you? Is it just like, let me put it like this: do you compose the music and then hand that off to somebody who then works it in, or is that more of like you are involved in every step of that process, making sure it's integrated the right way so that sound is coming through correctly when you're at those angles? I mean, just kind of what sort of I guess that's the question. Kind of lost the thread there.
No, I know exactly what you're getting at. So for Death Stranding, I obviously had to do a lot of different things. Fortunately / unfortunately, I didn't have the time to do the actual implementation of the audio assets into Wise, which is our audio engine. But I was working closely with the Sony or PlayStation music team that would I'd send the assets off to them, they'd mix it, and we'd go through mixing it together, and then I'd be working with music editors who'd edit up the music and implement that in the way that I specified in terms of what should happen at what times in the game, and or with what input from game AI or other game parameters.
Gotcha.
So I was fortunate to have really talented people help me out with that process, and honestly, I wouldn't have been able to do all the technical tweaks and like making sure that we're not going over the CPU usage and RAM usage and all that, all those like smart tweaks they did to make it all fit within the boundaries that were given to us. So they made it all happen, and they're a super talented team. So I got to focus on other things and have them do a better job at it than I would have been able to do.
That's good that you at least had like the oversight though, and were able to like work alongside them though, so you could just you could kind of direct how you wanted it used too.
For sure. There are definitely times where I know other composers have worked on a game and they just send the assets off, and then they find out how they're being used sometime down the line, maybe even after the game comes out, So that's definitely one of the better parts of having been the in-house guy and also audio director. So I basically had the power to say yay or nay to suggestions, and also be in a position where you're working with these awesome people who'd come up with all these great ideas. So like I'd be able to improve upon the simple ideas of just one guy who wants to make it sound cool.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds like a prime example of technical and artistic collaboration. So no, that's very cool to learn about. On the topic of sound design, kind of a non sequitur, but one of my favorite sort of backstories of a production of a song, it actually comes in with Silent Hill. Akira Yamaoka, he did this thing with the final boss theme where he uses a dental drill, like the sound of a dental drill when it's in your mouth.
Right.
He uses that as sort of the motif for the boss theme. The reason I'm saying this story is because one of the things that we like collectively about your music, particularly in MGS5, Oh, I'm sorry. Here we call it MGS Cinco. MGS Cinco
Okay.
is
There's been words every MGSB.
we call it MGS Cinco here. No,
Yeah.
is that it's almost like you use the game's sounds as motifs. I'm trying to think of an example off my head. If one of you guys could help me here.
An example would be great. I almost don't remember making the music for that game now. I'm just kidding, but still, like
the Sahelanthropus sound. There was this one, like, I don't know if you,
Yeah.
I don't know how you did this sound, but it's used in a couple tracks. It's used in House Child Unchained and Sahelanthropus Dominion. But it's like that. It's like percussive, but it's a synth, and it sounds really primal. And it's just like, like it's just this. Yeah, like what the fuck is that, and how did that come about? Like I love it. It's, you know, it's like it made the fight with Sahelanthropus terrifying. When it was like in the game, I was like, holy shit, I'm running away from this thing first, and then I can reevaluate. But
yeah, well, first off, big disclaimer: I did not write the music for the Sahelanthropus.
Oh, okay.
That was Justin Burnett. But working with him on those tracks, he had that sound in there at the very beginning, and I thought it was super cool. So I told him to feature it more and like make it bigger within the track, so it kind of becomes the theme for the Sahelanthropus. Honestly, I'm not sure how he did it, but I'm pretty sure it's a massive.
I was supposed to say, is it massive or serum or something like that?
Yeah, it's definitely not serum. It's prior to serum's, like before serum existed, I think.
Gotcha.
See, now Days and I have no idea what either of you are talking about.
Yeah, producer talk. Here we go.
Yeah, this is just like another language.
But so here's a sad realization with this is I have no proof of this, and like it's still a super cool sound. But one time I was at my old school listening to students playing back their demos, and like I'd go once every year and give some feedback to students. And one of the kids had that sound in their track, and I'm 90% sure they didn't rip it, so there's a big chance that it's from
like a sound bank
sample pack / like sound bank for Massive. So it might be out there for anybody to use if they can find it, but I have no idea.
Yeah, I remixed that House Child Unchained song, and yeah, that was just a fun part when that part hit to play drums around and stuff. So
yeah, no, it's I like the weird rhythmicality of it, and
yeah.
It definitely fits the idea.
Yeah, I did drumline, and that's what it put me into like a snare rudiment type like pattern where it was just like, you know, just it was definitely busy.
Yeah, no, it fits the thing perfectly.
With using sounds though, I remember you saying in an interview one time, God, I can't remember which one, that you went to, was it Home Depot or Lowe's? It was a hardware store to collect sound samples, right?
Yes, that's a story that reminded me of Silent Hill with the dentist drill.
Right. Well, I mean, for Metal Gear, we did do like a Foley sampling session, and just to like put that out there too. Obviously, Death Stranding is where we really spent a lot of time in creating instruments for it. But like for Metal Gear, we did this sampling session, and there's for Eli, his signature sound is sort of this like flute sound. Hideo wanted something to represent like the shell that he has like on his hip, I think.
Yeah.
And we made this flute sound that's literally the leg of one of my synth stands that we like blew into and created a flute out of.
Awesome.
So it's definitely something that I've always enjoyed in creating music from you know, less musical, less instrumental types of thingies. But yeah, we went to we went to Home Depot for Death Stranding for our sampling session. Me and Joel, who helped me with the musical sound design and a few tracks on the game, and PlayStation Music team right next to the PlayStation offices in San Mateo, and spent a night banging on stuff at Home Depot and finding interesting sounding things that we then brought to the studio and spent 2 or 3 days like banging on, destroying, and sampling in different weird ways, just trying to get like interesting timbres, and we also had a piano that we made a prepared piano. It's what they call it. Basically, we added nuts and bolts in between the strings and
Oh, wow.
did
that's crazy.
all kinds of weird shit to the piano to kind of create its own unique piano sound, and sampled all of that. And then the music team guys were working on those samples for a while and like doing weird distortion and stuff to them before implementing them all into contact libraries that I then used for the music.
So one piano died for the making of this game.
It's still alive. It's still in the PlayStation offices, actually.
It's just got character.
That's a piece of history right there.
Yeah, it's. I think it's got a sign on it, like the DS piano or something like that, and it's in like the hallway at PlayStation offices in San Mateo. At least I hope it's still there. They might have thrown it out.
No,
breaks my heart.
Every time I listen to that soundtrack now, I'm just gonna think about that piano and what it went through, and a little tear's gonna come down my eye. Just kidding.
Yeah, no, it's not super uncommon thing to do. Like a prepared piano, it's definitely happened before. But it makes it so much more worth like the end product, like making the music when you've actually made the instruments yourself, kind of. It's way more intimate, and even stuff that you maybe wouldn't think sound too great at the beginning, you force yourself to use them and you find ways to use them, and that ends up being like a great part of the creative process that usually, or at least hopefully, should yield something interesting.
Did you sacrifice or fuck anything up for like PT?
Let's see. No, I think I worked within the computer mostly for that one. Just trying to samples and mash them up and do weird stuff for that just within the computer. I did not have a lot of time on that project. It was brought on very late in the process, and basically I think I had 2 weeks or so to like just write the music for the parts that I wrote the music for. There's a few parts in there that I think people might think that I did that I actually didn't, but it was a short process, and
Man, 2 weeks, that's crazy.
2 weeks, yeah.
Jeez.
It's fun though.
At the same time though,
Yeah.
I'd imagine with as much as you do, there's a lot of music that gets sort of left on the cutting room floor, right?
Yeah, well, as I was saying with like bigger or longer game projects, there's a lot of time to like just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. So at the very beginning of the project, you definitely make a lot of sketches and try stuff out that you think sound great, but they don't actually fit the actual game. So there's a bunch of that left off of basically any project that I've worked on, but especially from Death Stranding, because the first year or so we were still kind of just figuring out the whole studio thing and building the company, and like building connections with people that we're going to work with throughout the process. So I had a lot of time where I was just trying out different sounds, and like you'd create a patch on your synth and you'd write a theme with that patch just to try it out, and you'd throw that to the side and then maybe use it for something totally different. So
yeah,
that happens a lot.
Use that as a launch point.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff that I hope that I get to use at some point, you know.
Yeah. That's how we get like the lost tapes and stuff like that too. Like eventually, where it's just like it comes out like as its own separate thing. Like with MGSV, we got that.
Cinco.
Yeah. There's a few things on that one that aren't in the game, I guess, and also some things that were like cut out from PT. So, but mostly it was supposed to be like the release that is for the tapes that you'd find in the game that didn't really make it onto the official soundtrack that we made just to like do world building for that, like the 80s type of stuff.
Well, dude, I'll tell you, I love death metal gear. That's just the fucking best.
Went hard on that one.
Yeah, it's I don't know, like I still I choose the situations where I show people that one. It's not something you can just show to anyone and be like, I'm a musician, hire me. It might get easily misinterpreted.
Is that something like some of your roots? Kind of like, did you start like with music like that, like when you were younger? Or
actually, yes, that's exactly what I used to do. I started out doing a band with my friends when we were like in elementary, and we'd play like start out with, I think it was Offspring music, and then we went into like Black Sabbath and yeah, we were like metalheads for a while.
Speaking my language, man.
Yeah, no, we definitely weren't the popular kids at all. We were just listening to 70s metal.
Well, screw the popular kids; they're no fun.
Growing our hair out. Yeah. No, that's I really have a problem with musicians who think they're cool, because we were always laughed at, basically. So I guess I'm just envious, but you know, like you see people who walk around with like their guitars and obviously they just do it to look cool, you know?
Yeah.
And it kind of pisses me off.
So what I'm getting is not a Bono fan.
Not a Bono fan. I guess, yeah. Stop clapping and killing those children in Africa, you know?
Oh my god. Stop fucking clapping. No, I remember that.
Yeah, good that one actually went through. Somebody got that one.
Let's see. So yeah, I mean, since we're talking about like, you know, your influences or what you did back in the day, is there anything that you listened to back then, and what are you listening to right now? Usually we ask people what they're playing right now, but we're gonna switch it up a bit here.
That's the thing with me. I've never been really good at finding new music. So like when I was in high school, I had a bunch of friends around me who'd always introduce me to new stuff. And that's still like in my like I guess I don't have an iPod anymore, but like I go to that when I start playing whatever on Spotify these days. But honestly, I should be listening to more music than I am. I really don't listen to a lot of music. It's usually like podcasts and stuff when I'm out. And then I'll be like, for better or worse, like analyzing everything that I hear in TV shows or movies and listen to a lot of soundtracks, but really bad at like finding new good music. So whenever like somebody on a friend on Facebook or something posts a music video, somebody supposedly famous and popular nowadays, I'm always happy to find something new.
Man, we're gonna have to make you a mixtape.
I'd be happy to, like, yeah, you know, like I just found out about this band called Ice Choir like last year, and like huge fan now, but they've been around for a while, but I had no idea, you know.
Yeah, you gotta love discovering new stuff. You're just like, oh shit, where has this been my whole life? Okay.
Yeah, and I definitely I mean I tend to listen to more, you know, like synthy stuff and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
But I enjoy all genres, you know. There's good in everything.
It's a good way to look at it.
I'm also like you, where I'm very God, I feel like stubborn is a bad word, but I'm kind of stubborn with my music, where it's hard for me to find new stuff. I'll find like, popular tracks like a year before or a year after they got popular.
Mhm.
But I think the difference here is like I'm afraid of listening to new music sent from friends. So maybe I need to change that habit a bit.
The one thing that I did find was really helpful for me was having friends who are actually super active on Spotify that you're connected with on Facebook or whatever. Because if you have the same taste, they'll just like keep making playlists. You can just use their playlist to find new stuff.
Yeah, that was one point too. You said like you're kind of like also when you're listening to music, it's just like you have that analytical side where it's like you're like trying to sit there and like go like, oh, okay, that's what they're doing there. Oh, okay, I can hear it now. Like when you've got that music production brain going on.
Yeah, it's hard to turn off.
Yeah,
that's probably why
makes it hard to enjoy stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it makes it hard to enjoy stuff, but it's I guess it can get fatiguing, especially like with the people around you. If you start like reasoning as to why a certain track is inferior to another one, while people are just trying to listen to music.
Shut up, man! We're trying to have a good time.
Yeah.
But the low end mix just isn't hitting for me. I mean, it's just
Right.
it's kind of muddy, and
You're like
I
that
don't know.
meme of that guy like whispering in the girl's ear, and she just looks miserable.
Yeah.
There's too much 5K. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's probably why like I end up like when we have friends over for like house parties, we just end up playing like 90s boy bands music,
There you go. Can't go wrong with NSYNC.
It's just great
Nothing
fun.
wrong.
It's like it's what we grew up on.
And 90s music rules. There's no problem with that.
Yeah, no, I mean like it's kind of this like love-hate relationship where I had to hate all the Backstreet Boys and all that popular stuff, mainstream stuff back in the 90s when I was a kid because we were the metalheads who were obviously not mainstream. So
But now you kind of miss it, right?
Exactly. That's it. You can always turn around and just like enjoy the past for what it was, you know?
I say as I take a swig of Pepsi Blue.
That reminds me, can I go get another coffee real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Go ahead.
I'll be back in a minute.
And then I can open my drink and not affect the recording. Yeah! Oh, it was quiet anyway. Never mind.
I got a few house playlists I could throw on the chat.
Yeah, I'm starting to think like, what should I put in a mixtape?
Mine were, well, I'm glad you said he liked 90s music, because all my shit would be like house music from the 90s.
See,
From,
and I
like,
listened to like...
Chicago and France.
Oh, nice. You should send me some of that.
Yeah, I'd be down.
See, I listened to like Psytrance and stuff like that, but like somehow I only just recently discovered Infected Mushroom, and I don't know how I've missed them for this. I know.
Oh my god,
dude.
I know.
What is wrong with you? Wow.
I know.
Oh my god. I found them through
know.
I found them through a Stepmania machine. Can you believe that?
Yeah, I do believe.
When y'all were talking about the producer mind, I wanted to jump in with like, oh well, I have the rhythm gamer mind where I break down songs too.
It was straight up
just like up, down, left, right, up, down, left, right.
Yeah.
I kind of want to save this, but a game got me into one of my favorite bands, and I didn't even know it.
What?
Descent 2 got me into Typo Negative.
Huh. Yeah. I would say as far as my taste in music, like just the entire conglomerate of EA Big was like dictated by like music choice.
Respect to DJ Atomica.
DJ Atomica fucking changed my life. Yeah, wasn't DJ Atomica in like multiple games? Like wasn't he part of the EA Big universe?
Yeah, he was in SSX and he was in Burnout, and I think there was something else.
Yeah. Burnout with Yellow Card. Way away.
Man, I miss that. I still go back and play SSX3 every once in a while just to calm down. My ultimate chill out game.
The bass line and the menu music of SSX3 though.
Yeah. Yeah, like I know exactly what you're talking about.
and you're like ready, and then like it goes away when you load the music or when you go into a loading screen, and like
Yeah. And it
you're
gets
ready
into
to, like,
that more ethereal sort of playlist as everything's sort of loading in.
yeah, and you're ready to fucking like kick your opponents off a cliff while you go down big mountain.
Hell yes. Seriously, you load
Hell
that game up,
yes.
you go to the top of the mountain, 30 minutes, you just chill the whole way down. It's just great relaxation.
What game is that?
SSX3.
Ah,
Good old
Sorry.
snowboarding.
We were
good old snowboard.
we were circle jerking about our own music influences, which
Right.
were mostly video game music, believe it or not. So
I mean, it's strange now to think about it, but when I was younger, I was telling her a game got me into one of my favorite bands. There was an old DOS first-person shooter, like a space shooter, called Descent 2. And they had a soundtrack with a bunch of artists that contributed to it, and that got me into Typo Negative. And so, like, I guess it's more common now to sort of imagine that with as many licensed tracks are going into games now, that, you know, games are getting people into different bands more than they used to. Like my parents still sort of subscribe to the idea that game music is just beeps and boops, you know, and I have to be like, you know, not really,
Right.
but
Not really.
Not at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, that's definitely something I've been seeing a lot, so I agree. You guys were mentioning SSX, but like, how about that 1080 soundtrack, though?
oh man,
Oh,
I had a friend who actually did a remix of that. I might actually put that in Nitroid's mixtape. But yeah,
Noise.
God, you know, the N64, and this is, I had had this conversation with the same friend. The N64 had a lot of really good drums and bass tracks. Does anybody, like, I feel like,
yeah,
don't
drum
know.
and bass was just like really popular in that like time
Mm.
period.
I mean, my
too.
mind instantly goes to the GoldenEye soundtrack.
yeah, that was also pretty influential.
For sure.
Well, we're kind of leaving you in the dust here. What sort of stuff did you play growing
Yeah,
up?
sorry, we're rambling about ourselves. Our listeners get enough of that.
No, I'm just sad I didn't play any of those games. I can't really relate super a lot. My parents wouldn't get me a game console for the longest time, so when I finally got like an old ass Super Nintendo, I was like the happiest kid on earth for a while.
Aw.
But to this day, obviously best video game soundtrack of all time, Donkey Kong Country 2.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
That's oh man, that like underwater music.
Those textures.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, they really had the textures figured out for just all that stuff back then.
Yeah.
And that's like they had to rely a lot more on like melody, and like I think with a lot of your stuff, like, of course there's melody with it. But like one thing that I think you like really excel at is just like creating a mood and a vibe, like you just have like these big cues that are like just driven by percussion and where the drums are just taking the lead and stuff like OKB0 is like a good example.
Yeah. This is kind of a dangerous subject to get into because you can get a lot of gamers angry with you if you start talking about like what like modern day game music is and why it is the way it is and why it's not like it used to be. It's kind of a dangerous subject. I think there was this discussion with Austin Wintry and Alex Mukala, is that his last name? They did this podcast where they brought up I think it was cyberpunk as like the example, and people were just talking about how cyberpunk music is elevator music because it doesn't have melodies and all that stuff.
I disagree.
I mean, like, to each his own at the end of the day, but when you have a huge game, and this is pretty much the point that we're making, you have a game that you're going to be playing that has a huge sprawling story and it's like 50 plus hours. You can't have the same melody like repeating over and over
Exactly.
again.
Yeah.
And there are many ways you can like definitely hint at themes and motifs within the music, but I guess at the end of the day, for me, I just enjoy doing music that's less focused on traditional means of harmony and melody. Or at least I've worked on projects where the project itself didn't lend itself very very well to that type of traditional approach.
Mhm.
And to some extent also I feel like I've been sort of attacked for that approach by everybody who prefers the more traditional approach. So I felt like I've had to defend myself a lot on that point.
I'm not one of those guys, so
But like
nah, those people don't know shit.
Well, is that just a consequence of the scale of games now and how much bigger they've gotten?
not only, I mean, it's also like it talks to it pertains to the freedom that we have nowadays as composers in video games. We can do so much more than like work with 5 different instruments where you have to have like, well, you got to have the rhythm, you got to have the bass, you got to have the main melody, and then you
Yeah.
can have some harmony in between. There's so many more approaches to sonic storytelling that we can do nowadays. So I think a lot of people just have the freedom to try out new things, and that's great. It doesn't always work. I guess there's some games where they probably should have had a more traditional score. I'm not going to mention any specific ones, but it's just like you give more freedom to people, and what's bad about that? I don't know. Like
Yeah. And I guess even looking back at something like you mentioned Donkey Kong Country 2, and I remember reading articles about how David Wise basically had to hack the hardware to get a lot of those sounds into the game in the first place.
Yeah.
Just to make them work.
Yeah, well, I mean, like that's the thing about the Donkey Kong Country soundtrack is I have no idea how he made that game console sound that way, because it sounds like years and years ahead of its time.
Yeah, it's magic.
Yeah.
That was one thing with MGSV's soundtrack. It was very like informative for the player. Like it was not just good music for me, but it was like it set the tone and let you know like, hey, you just got spotted a little bit, and like there's that little bit of tension rising all of a sudden. And so for me, I really enjoy the approach, especially in like an open world, where you're just you'll be running for a while, and then you get that music cue. And it's like, okay, here we go. That for me that helped out a lot just playing through it.
It's always hard to make that both musically interesting and also very informative to the player. But and I mean, it's
sort of a mood over melody philosophy.
Right. But you also, as the composer, you always want to make something that you're proud of. That's not just like, oh, you press a button and it just happens to be pad that makes the mood correct. So I think there's a lot more that goes into it that people don't realize in creating, like a soundscape that's actually interesting and not just reusing a sample that just happens to fit.
Yeah, and that's one thing. Like with Metal Gear, it seems almost like there's like 3 or 4 tracks playing at the same time that like are like different instances of the same thing. Like like you have like your high alert version, and then like as things kind of calm down, it's like it's almost as if like a fader's just being turned down, and like the caution mix is kind of being brought up, and then it can switch on the fly like very fluidly without it being like this jarring thing where it just starts the next track. Is that's something that I'm guessing like you have to be thinking about while you're writing it?
Absolutely. I mean, with Metal Gear 2, it's got a history of very obvious switches in enemy AI states.
Yeah.
So I guess at the time we were trying to do something different, but also making sure, especially since we didn't have the visual cues that they had in the previous games, you go from alert, evasion, caution, back to sneaking or whatever.
Yeah.
Wanted to make sure that the player was informed that the actual state had switched, that like the enemy AI would be different, while keeping it fluent. So
yeah, you definitely did a good job on it.
I don't know. It took it took some time figuring out for me because it was like my first big game like that. That wasn't just like a linear kind of thing. So, it took a while to figure out, but yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Haven't listened to the music in a while, but it was a fun experience.
I mean, do you get a lot of compliments for Bloodstained Anthem? I'm sure somebody tweets you about that at least once a day.
It happens. Bloodstained Anthem, yeah. Tell you a thing or two about the production of that one. That I don't think I've had a track where I had to rewrite it as many times as that one. It was still the same track, but like every time I threw it into the game, it didn't really do the thing it was supposed to do. So, remixing and rehashing it like 20 times to actually make it work the way it should. But yeah, that was like the first big Metal Gear theme I did, I think.
Iconic.
Yeah. Well, it made me it at least let me kind of support.
We're gonna make you feel awkward. It's okay.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm trying to remember actually what like the process of making Ground Zeroes was like. Obviously, the first thing we did was like the 25th year anniversary trailer thing with the ba thing.
Yeah.
And we were like it forever. We couldn't decide, or somebody like the audio director couldn't decide whether he wanted that to be the theme for the whole bit, or if it should go into the main game of Metal Gear Solid 5. And then I guess Bloodstained Anthem happened, and I kind of made a different melodic theme for Ground Zeroes that kind of at least plays throughout the major first campaign mission with pause and all of that. But yeah, no, I that was my first real gig at Kojima Productions, doing the first 25th year ba thing, and then Ground Zeroes.
Yeah, that definitely sticks in your mind. Well, I mean, getting off of Metal Gear. Sorry, go ahead, Dace.
I was gonna say, I'm just thinking about like what was going through your head, feeling not only that sort of being your first like you said, your first big job at Kojima Productions, but also sort of filling in big shoes, if you will, because this is such a long-standing series with such iconic themes.
Yeah, I think in the end, I've been lucky that I've always had people around me who worked on the games prior to me. Like, even when I was in school here in Japan, when I went to college, one of my teachers was Nobuko Toda, who did a lot of the music for MGS4.
Oh, nice.
And when I first joined Konami, I was working closely with Kazuma Jinochi, who also did a lot of the music for MGS4, and who was supposed to do the main, was supposed to be the lead composer for what became Revengeance, but obviously that switched companies. And Akihiro Honda was kind of my mentor when I first joined the Kojima Productions team, and he'd been around since MGS2, I think. And now that I think about it, I was working with Norihiko Hibino on like this Gradius inspired Otome game that I did when I was a student.
Nice.
Oh wow, that's quite the mentorship.
Basically everybody.
And,
yeah.
Yeah, and like for MGS5, we knew we wouldn't be working directly with Harry Gregson on it because of scheduling things. I don't remember. Don't take my word for that. But I got to like go meet with him and talk with him, and I was working with Justin Burnett, who's kind of a protege of Harry Gregson Williams, on the whole project. And like we got Harry Gregson Williams blessing on the whole project, and like he went through the music as we were mixing it, and he was like, well, this is not me, but I think you guys really did something that's fitting for the game itself. So
that's awesome.
it's been a very inclusive, like collaborative relationship with all the other composers throughout the series. I think for almost at least people that I've had the chance to meet, I think is like everyone that I know of that have really been big parts of the series.
That's very awesome. That's cool to hear. And then we won't take up much more of your time, but since you did work at Kojima Productions, I've always wanted to know what it was like to go through the liminal space when you walk in. Does it make you feel clean? You don't have to answer that question.
I've had a few times where we're like taking a photo in that corridor and like whatever quick photo shoots there. It's really hard to not look like you're that's not an appropriate joke. Anyways, I can't keep my eyes open in that hallway.
Okay, yeah, I think I'm picking up what you're putting down. Yeah.
Just put on sunglasses.
Honestly, I wish I could. But yeah, it's that was an early ass concept for the whole company. I like even before they decided what the layout of the main floor would be, like Hideo had that vision of having that corridor leading you into the spaceship kind of approach to the entrance. Mind you, we don't use that with past tense. They don't use that as like the main entrance for employees. They just enter from the side, so you don't have to go through that every morning.
See, now we're getting the real dirt.
I was about to say this is definitely not the answer I was expecting, but an answer nonetheless. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't want to keep you too long, but we definitely appreciate you coming on, man. Taking time to talk with us.
I've had fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know it's difficult with the time difference.
No worries. More so than the time difference. Sorry about like not being at my house for the last couple of weeks, so it was kind of hard to schedule in the perfect date for it. But yeah, thanks for having me, and look forward to hearing it once it's out. I'm probably not going to listen to it. I hate listening to stuff that I'm on.
All good. Totally understand.
Look, man, as long as you promo it. I'm just kidding.
Cool, man. Yeah, if you want to, you can plug, where people can find you online, your website and just different places like that.
Sure. Well, I'm at Ludvig_Forssell on the Twitters, and my website is ludvigforssell.com. It's 2 S's and 2 L's, which is sort of weird, but that's how we Swedes roll.
That's a rad website, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah, I made it all myself with the template.
Looks good.
Now I feel like an ass.
No. I tweaked it so it looks what I wanted from the beginning, but honestly, I thought I'd have to hire an expensive web designer, and then a web designer told me that all the web pages that you're listing as references are all made by this template. So just pay for the Wix.com membership and you can do it yourself.
Cut out the middleman.
This episode is brought to you by Wix.
Yeah.
Life tips.
Yeah.
Get that sponsorship. All right. Yeah. Thanks again, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. You guys have a good night. I'm gonna have to go and do some promo shit for Belle, I think, today. Should be fun. But
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, dude. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks again.
All right, have a good one.
Thanks, guys.